There comes a moment in every person's life when the mirror stops lying, a moment when you look at yourself, not the surface, not the excuses, not the stories you've rehearsed for years, but the truth, and the truth is simple. Nothing around you will shift until something within you does. You can pray for a breakthrough, you can wait for a sign, you can hope the world suddenly opens its doors for you. But if you keep showing up as the same version of yourself, the results will never change. Most people think change is external. They believe it starts with new opportunities, new resources, new support. But change doesn't begin around you. Change begins because you finally decide to become someone different. A new mindset, a new standard, a new level of hunger, a new level of courage. The world doesn't reward intentions, it rewards transformation. Every time you say, "I want a better life," life whispers back, "Show me who you're willing to become." You can't repeat the same habits and expect a different destiny. You can't wake up with fear and expect outcomes built on confidence. You can't cling to comfort and expect growth. Life will always meet you at the level of your commitment, not your wishes. Think about this. Every break through you're dreaming of is already possible. It already exists in a version of you that you haven't stepped into yet. The stronger you, the disciplined you, the focused you, the unstoppable you. But that version won't appear by accident. You have to carve it. You have to claim it. You have to choose it even on the days when everything inside you wants to choose the old patterns. Change demands honesty. It demands responsibility. It demands that you stop blaming the environment, your past, your circumstances. It demands that you take your power back, because the moment you accept that your life is shaped by your decisions, not your conditions, everything shifts. That's the moment you stop waiting for miracles and start creating them. People don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they cling to what's familiar. Familiar fear, familiar habits, familiar self-doubt. But the life you want is not found in what's familiar. It's found in the unknown, where you feel uncomfortable, where you stretch, where you grow. That discomfort you avoid is the doorway to the future you keep dreaming about. So ask yourself right now, what am I pretending not to know? What truth have I been running from? What change have I avoided because it feels too big, too risky, too uncertain? Your answer to those questions is the exact place your life is waiting to transform. Change doesn't happen when you feel ready. Change happens when you decide that staying the same is no longer an option. When you reach that breaking point, not of weakness, but of clarity. When you say, "Enough, I'm done repeating this cycle. I'm done letting fear write my story. I'm done living below my potential," that's when life begins to rearrange itself around your decision. You are not stuck. You are not limited. You are not defined by who you were yesterday. You are one decision away from a completely different life, one shift in mindset, one act of courage, one moment of stepping forward when your old self would have stepped back. But the decision is yours, the responsibility is yours, the power is yours. If you don't change, nothing will. But if you do, if you dare to upgrade your standards, your identity, your actions, then everything in your life can transform faster than you ever imagined. So rise up, interrupt your old patterns, demand more from yourself, step into the version of you that your future is begging for, because your life will expand or contract based on one thing: your willingness to change. And the moment you choose transformation, the world around you will follow. Nothing in your life changes until you change, because every part of your external reality is a reflection of your internal patterns. People spend years fighting circumstances, blaming timing, blaming their environment, blaming the lack of resources, not realizing that nothing outside of them has the power to shift until something inside of them transforms first. You can replace the job, change the city, switch the people around you, but if you bring the same mindset, the same fears, the same beliefs, the same identity, the same habits, then the story will repeat itself in a different setting. Life doesn't upgrade just because you want it to. It upgrades because you evolve into someone who can hold, attract, and sustain the life you say you want. And until that evolution happens, the world simply mirrors back the same results you've been living with. There's a reason two people can go through the exact same situation and come out with two completely different outcomes. It's not luck, it's not fate, it's who they are on the inside. One person sees an obstacle and collapses because their old identity can't handle uncertainty, while another sees the same obstacle and rises because they've trained themselves to respond from a place of strength. Change is never about the situation. It is always about the internal structure you show up with. When that structure shifts, your experience of the world shifts. Your decisions shift. Your reactions shift. Your energy shifts. You begin to move differently, speak differently, think differently, and because of that, life responds differently. Most people wait for change. They wait for clarity, wait for confidence, wait for permission, wait for the right time. But change never happens through waiting. It happens through decision. It happens the moment you stop negotiating with your limitations and start choosing the identity that aligns with the future you want. Change begins when you declare that the old version of you, the one who hesitates, doubts, procrastinates, fears, and settles, no longer has the steering wheel. It begins when you interrupt your own patterns. When you catch yourself repeating the same excuses and decide not to accept them anymore. When you realize that your life will always rise or fall according to the standard you hold for yourself. Every breakthrough starts with self-awareness. The courage to look at your life without distortion, without sugar, coating, without denial. It takes strength to admit that you are the common denominator in your patterns. That the reason certain things keep repeating is not because life is unfair, but because you're showing up as the same person expecting a different outcome. And once you acknowledge that truth, you gain power. Because if you are the source of the problem, you are also the source of the solution. You are the doorway to the transformation you keep imagining. The moment you begin changing internally, even slightly, you trigger a ripple effect. A small shift in your mindset opens up new choices. New choices lead to new actions. New actions lead to different results. And suddenly, life begins to reorganize itself around your new identity. People respond to you differently. Opportunities begin to appear, obstacles feel smaller, possibilities feel bigger, momentum builds, and all of this happens because you changed the source, the you behind the decisions. When you shift who you are on the inside, reality has no choice but to shift with you. This is why real change doesn't come from motivation. It comes from identity. Motivation fades, but identity shapes your behavior automatically. When you see yourself as someone who follows through, you act differently. When you see yourself as someone worthy of success, you make different decisions. When you see yourself as someone who refuses to settle, you operate at a higher level. Identity creates action, action creates results, results reinforce identity. It becomes a loop of transformation that starts with a single internal decision to evolve. So when you say you want a better life, a better income, a better relationship, a better level of confidence, the real question is, are you willing to become the person who can live that life? Because wanting change is easy, becoming the change is what separates the ones who dream from the ones who rise. And the moment you choose to shift within yourself, your beliefs, your habits, your standards, your emotional responses, everything outside of you begins to move in a new direction. Your results rise or fall based on your standards, not your intentions, because life is always responding to the level of demand you place on yourself. Most people talk about what they want, but very few enforce the standards required to achieve it. They say they want success, but they tolerate distractions. They say they want growth, but they entertain excuses. They say they want to change their life, yet they hold on to the habits that keep them exactly where they are. Intentions sound good. Standards shape reality. What you tolerate becomes your pattern, and what you demand becomes your life. Every result you are living today is a reflection of the standards you have accepted up until this moment. Think about how powerful that is. Your standards are the invisible boundary lines that decide how you think, how you act, how you respond, how you show up. They decide what you allow, what you reject, what you chase, what you settle for. You can have incredible dreams, detailed plans, beautiful goals, but if your standards are low, your life can never rise above them. High standards force you to stretch, to grow, to discipline yourself, to become someone worthy of the outcomes you want. Low standards keep you comfortable, passive, and stuck in cycles that never elevate you. It's not that people aim too high and miss. Most aim too low and hit it every single time because their standards never demand more from them. When you look at someone thriving, it's easy to assume they had better tools, better luck, better circumstances. But what you're really looking at is a person who refuses to settle for anything less than what aligns with their highest potential. Their standards for their mindset are higher. Their standards for their habits are higher. Their standards for their discipline, their focus, their commitment, their energy are higher. They don't allow themselves to quit when it's hard. They don't accept emotional excuses. They don't tolerate behaviors that sabotage their future. They have built a life around the belief that excellence is the minimum, not the maximum. Intentions create desire. Standards create identity. When you set a new intention, nothing truly changes until your standards rise to meet it. If you intend to get healthier but keep the same eating habits, your intention is powerless. If you intend to build wealth but keep the same spending and saving habits, your intention is meaningless. If you intend to become more confident but keep feeding the same fearful stories to your mind, your intention is only a wish. Life never rewards wishes. It rewards standards that are backed by consistent action. And those standards become your internal contract, the agreement you make with yourself about how you will live, no matter how you feel on any given day. Raising your standards is not about perfection. It's about eliminating the behaviors that contradict the future you want. It's about removing the option of going back to the old you. It's about deciding that certain excuses, certain habits, certain people, certain environments are no longer allowed in your life. It's about holding yourself accountable even when no one is watching. It's about honoring your word even when it would be easier to break it. When your standards rise, your behavior naturally follows. You start to act in a way that aligns with your vision instead of your comfort. You begin to attract opportunities that match your new identity because your energy broadcasts a different message to the world. Every transformation begins with a moment when you raise your expectations for yourself. Not temporarily, not when it's convenient, but permanently. A moment when you stop negotiating your goals, stop shrinking your dreams, stop diluting your potential. A moment when you realize that your life will only expand to the level you demand from yourself. When you raise your standards, you change your destiny, because you stop operating from who you've been and start operating from who you're capable of becoming. And the higher your standards rise, the more life begins to bend in the direction of your new identity, creating outcomes that once felt out of reach but now become inevitable because you decided to elevate the rules you live by. Comfort is the enemy of growth because comfort convinces you that staying the same is safer than becoming more. It whispers that you have time, that tomorrow is enough, that your current effort is acceptable. Comfort makes you believe that settling is normal, that waiting is wise, that avoiding challenges protects you. But comfort is the quiet trap that keeps you from stepping into the life you actually want. Every dream you have, every breakthrough you imagine, every level of success you crave lives outside the borders of what feels easy. Growth has never come from convenience, and it never will. Growth requires that you walk into the unknown, face resistance, confront fear, and stretch your identity beyond the edges of what you've already mastered. The human mind is wired to avoid pain and seek pleasure, which means it naturally resists anything that feels uncomfortable. But discomfort is the birthplace of transformation. Every time you step into something unfamiliar, your brain expands. Every time you challenge yourself, your capacity increases. Every time you push through fear, your confidence rises. Comfort offers you the illusion of safety, but it steals your potential in the process. The life you want depends on your willingness to do the things your comfort zone refuses to do. The moment you stop stretching is the moment you stop evolving, and the moment you stop evolving is the moment your future becomes a repetition of your past. Look at any person who has accomplished something extraordinary. Their achievements were not built inside comfort. They were built in the moments when they pushed themselves beyond what felt natural. They were built through failure, repetition, uncertainty, risk, and consistent discomfort. They became great not because growth felt good, but because growth felt necessary. They reached a point where staying the same became more painful than breaking through. That is the shift every person must make if they want to transform their life. You must reach the place where you are no longer willing to trade your potential for temporary ease, where you refuse to let comfort dictate your destiny. The reason breakthroughs feel so powerful is because they require a version of you that didn't exist before. You cannot grow without outgrowing something. You must outgrow excuses, limitations, fears, patterns, and beliefs that no longer serve your future. Every level of your life demands a new level of you, and that new level is forged through discomfort. When you lean into challenges instead of avoiding them, they become the stepping stones that elevate your entire existence. When you lean away from challenges, they become the walls that confine you. Growth is not found in avoiding difficulty. It's found in choosing to face it with courage and persistence. Comfort keeps you predictable, but growth makes you powerful. Comfort keeps you stuck, but growth makes you unstoppable. Comfort holds you to the standards of your past, but growth pushes you toward the possibility of your future. Many people stay trapped in lives that don't fulfill them simply because they are afraid to face the temporary discomfort required to change. They fear judgment, failure, uncertainty, and rejection. But all of those fears lose their power the moment you step forward anyway. Action dissolves fear. Movement interrupts doubt. Courage grows every time you use it. You don't need to feel ready to grow. You just need to be willing to be uncomfortable long enough to rise into the person you're capable of becoming. You will always have two choices: remain in the safety of what you know or step into the challenge of who you can become. One path offers comfort but no growth. The other offers growth but no comfort. Your future depends on which one you choose. The people who change their lives are not the ones who avoid discomfort. They are the ones who embrace it. They understand that discomfort is not a sign that they're breaking, but a sign that they are building. They treat discomfort as a compass pointing directly toward the area where their next level of transformation is waiting. Every time you stretch yourself, even a little, you expand what you believe is possible. You break the boundaries of your old identity and begin constructing a new one. The small, uncomfortable actions lead to bigger ones, and soon the things that once intimidated you become the things that empower you. That is the magic of growth. It reshapes your entire sense of self. And once you realize how much stronger, wiser, and more capable you become every time you choose discomfort, you stop fearing it and start seeking it, because you understand that everything you truly want lies just beyond the edges of your comfort zone. You must replace old patterns with new decisions if you want a new destiny, because your future is built from the choices you make repeatedly, not the ones you make occasionally. Every pattern you follow is like a script your mind has memorized, and unless you intentionally rewrite it, you will keep acting out the same scenes, having the same experiences, and living the same results. Most people don't realize that their patterns are running the show. They think life is happening to them, but in reality, life is responding to the habits, beliefs, emotional reactions, and unconscious decisions they repeat every day. If nothing changes in the pattern, nothing changes in the outcome. A new destiny cannot emerge from an old identity, and an old identity cannot survive inside new decisions unless you are willing to break the cycle. Old patterns are comfortable because they are familiar, predictable, and automatic. Even when they don't serve you, they feel safe because you know them. But familiarity is not the same as fulfillment. Many people stay trapped in routines that drain them simply because those routines are easier than confronting the discomfort of change. It takes awareness to recognize a pattern, courage to disrupt it, and discipline to replace it with one that aligns with who you want to become. Your destiny is not shaped by the big moments alone, but by the small decisions you make when no one is watching. Those small decisions compound, and over time they become the blueprint of your future. The truth is that new results require a new internal operating system. You cannot think the same way, act the same way, respond the same way, and somehow expect a different outcome. If you want a stronger mindset, you must decide to feed your mind differently. If you want a healthier body, you must decide to treat your body differently. If you want better relationships, you must decide to show up differently. If you want more success, you must decide to work, plan, and believe differently. It all comes down to decisions, decisions that disrupt the pattern, decisions that break old cycles, decisions that move you toward the person you are capable of becoming. Replacing old patterns begins with honesty. You must be willing to look at your life and identify the patterns that have kept you stuck. Patterns of procrastination, patterns of fear, patterns of self-doubt, patterns of negative thinking, patterns of emotional reactions, patterns of choosing comfort over progress. These patterns are not character flaws. They are simply habits your mind has practiced long enough to become automatic. Once you see them clearly, you gain the power to change them. You cannot transform something you refuse to acknowledge. Awareness creates the opening, but decision creates the shift. A single new decision can interrupt a lifetime of old habits. One moment of courage can dismantle years of playing small. One change in perspective can alter the direction of your entire future. This is why decisions are so powerful. They are the gateways to transformation. Every time you choose a new decision over an old pattern, you are teaching your mind a new way of being. You are training your nervous system to operate at a higher standard. You are rewriting the identity that shapes your destiny. You are breaking the cycle that once kept you confined. But new decisions must be repeated. It's not enough to choose once. Change happens when a decision is reinforced over and over again until it becomes your new normal. Consistency is what transforms a decision into a pattern and a pattern into a destiny. The more you repeat a new choice, the more natural it becomes. The old identity begins to fade and the new one becomes stronger. You start to trust yourself more. You start to expect more from yourself. You start to create momentum that pulls you forward instead of holding you back. Every transformation story is really the story of someone who decided to stop living from their past and start living from their potential. They stopped letting old patterns dictate their future. They refused to be defined by who they used to be. They chose differently, acted differently, believed differently, and over time they became different. That is how destinies are created. They are not handed to you. They are shaped by the decisions you make daily, especially the ones that challenge your old patterns. Your life will not change because you hope for it. It will change because you decide for it. And every decision you make that opposes your old patterns is a step toward the destiny you know you are meant to live. Your future depends on the identity you choose to step into today because everything you experience in life flows from who you believe you are. Identity is the foundation of every action, every decision, every habit, and every result. You can desire a different future. You can dream of bigger opportunities. You can plan for success. But if your internal identity contradicts the life you want, you will unconsciously sabotage your own progress. People don't rise to their goals. They rise to the level of their identity. When your identity aligns with your vision, your life moves forward with power. When it doesn't, you remain stuck in a cycle of frustration, repeating the same behaviors that keep you from evolving. Identity is not just who you think you are. It is who you assume yourself to be in every situation. It is built from your beliefs, your self-talk, your emotional patterns, your memories, and the meanings you attach to your experience. If you see yourself as someone who always struggles, you will create behaviors that reinforce struggle. If you see yourself as someone who is not worthy, you will reject opportunities that require self-worth. If you see yourself as someone who always falls short, you will find ways to fall short even when success is within reach. Your identity becomes the thermostat of your life, regulating your potential and keeping you within the limits of what feels familiar and safe. This is why lasting change never happens from motivation alone. Change becomes permanent only when your identity shifts. When you stop identifying as the old you, the one who hesitates, doubts, gets overwhelmed, procrastinates, settles, or fears growth, and start identifying as the version of you who takes action, stays committed, embraces challenges, and demands more from yourself, your behavior begins to transform. Effortlessly, you don't have to force discipline when discipline becomes part of who you are. You don't have to fight for confidence when confidence becomes your natural state. You don't have to chase success when success-driven behavior becomes your default identity. Your future is shaped by identity because identity drives consistency, and consistency creates results. The person you are becoming today will determine the opportunities you attract tomorrow. If your identity remains tied to your past, your failures, your regrets, your trauma, your limitations, you will continue reliving the same story. But if you intentionally choose an identity aligned with your potential, your life begins to transform in ways that once felt impossible. You start thinking differently, acting differently, and showing up differently. You begin to make decisions from a place of strength instead of fear, expansion instead of scarcity, purpose instead of distraction. Identity is a choice, but most people don't realize they can choose it. They inherit identities from childhood, experiences, criticism, failure, or the expectations of others. They accept these identities as truth and live their entire lives based on outdated programming. But identity is not fixed. It can be rewritten, upgraded, and transformed. It begins with awareness, recognizing who you have been, and continues with intention, deciding who you will become. The gap between these two identities is where growth happens. The moment you choose to step into a new identity, you ignite a new trajectory for your future. Stepping into a new identity requires courage because it means letting go of the version of you that feels familiar, even if that version has held you back. It means releasing the stories you've told yourself for years. It means challenging the beliefs that have shaped your patterns. It means refusing to be ruled by the labels others have placed on you. And most importantly, it means acting in alignment with the identity you claim even before the results show up. You don't wait to be successful to identify as successful. You don't wait to be confident to identify as confident. You act as the person you want to become, and your life rises to meet that identity. Every major transformation in history, whether personal or global, began with an identity shift. Someone decided that the old way of living was no longer acceptable. Someone chose to embody a new level of strength, courage, discipline, or passion. Someone stepped into a version of themselves that matched the future they envisioned instead of the past they remembered. You have that same power. You can redefine who you are at any moment. You can choose the identity that will shape your future rather than remaining confined by the identity tied to your past. Your future does not depend on what you hope for. It depends on who you decide to be. And the identity you step into today becomes the force that shapes the opportunities, experiences, relationships, and results that will define the rest of your life.